you for joining our webinar today. I am Kim Rayfelt, Director of Marketing and Public Relations, and I will be your host. Our webinars are designed to keep you up to date on what is new with our Symmetry Security Management System and our services, provide an overview of Symmetry's unique benefits, and help you differentiate your company from others when you team up with us. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please type them into the Q&A box, and we will address as many as we can after the webinar is over. If there are any questions that we don't get to during the webinar, then we will follow up after the webinar with answers. I usually send those in the thank you email. Today, we welcome back Greg McDermott, Manager of Application Engineering. Greg will be giving us an update and overview of our Symmetry Access Control system. We recently released a new version, and it includes some interesting features that I think you will find very beneficial. And as always, I will wrap it up at the end with a short marketing update. So AMAG technology offers a robust, unified, and open platform that empowers businesses to effectively secure their facilities, meet compliance, and have peace of mind. While access control is certainly the foundation of what we do here at AMAG, the Symmetry Security Management System also includes video management, identity management, analytics, mobile, visitor management, and intrusion. Our solutions also help our reseller channel and end users solve security and compliance challenges. The Symmetry Security Management, along with our ecosystem of best-of-breed technology partners, operate together to provide a complete solution for you. All of our webinars and so much more can be found on our YouTube channel, which I invite you to subscribe to. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to turn it over to Greg, who will give you an update on Symmetry Access Control.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you everyone for joining us to see what's new with Symmetry Access Control. So let's take a look. Next slide. Symmetry Access Control version 9.4.51 is the newest patch release for our 9.4 platform software. It's available already on our software download portal, and it replaces our last release, which was version 9.4.19. So 9.4.51 includes a lot of all the enhancements that were in 9.4.19, but also includes items from some earlier minor releases that weren't initially incorporated into the 9.4.19 release. Most of the patches include bug fixes and software tweaks, but there's also a lot of new good stuff in the 9.4.51 with enhancements to cardholders and visitor permissions, new integration capabilities, and a lot more. So let's take a closer look at each of these categories. Next slide, please. So starting with support for cardholders and visitors, in 9.4.51, we've added more granularity with it when it comes to user permissions and the cardholder access tab. So in Symmetry Access Control, a user role is a defined set of permissions to the software. So it defines what operators and users have access to when they're navigating through Symmetry. In the new release, a new permission called Cardholder Access Rights tab has been added to the system. With this new permission, we can select whether an operator is able to see the Access Rights tab or not when they're viewing a cardholder screen. Previous versions had user permissions called Cardholder Normal Rights Access and Cardholder Advanced Rights that could control whether the operator could interact with them, but now we can remove the tab completely. These permissions are still there, but now they also determine whether or not these rights are read-only or editable. So with these enhancements, we have a lot more granularity and control over what operators can and can't see within the access. And similar enhancements have also been added to the visitor screen within Symmetry. And additionally, we added a new permission called Cardholder Intrusion System Users. This, when unchecked, will remove the ability for an operator to assign cardholder intrusion rights to the system. Next slide. Moving on to our new Intercom SDK. So for a little bit of background on this, for years, Symmetry has had an integration to Zenatel's Intercom product lines. For anyone who has not experienced Zenatel, I highly recommend you take a look at their products. The sound quality of their stations is phenomenal. Their products, particularly the IC Edge, is very competitively priced. So it's definitely something that I do recommend you take a look at. But if you have another intercom that you're using on a project or where you don't have those options, for years we've only been able to do a hardwired hardwired integration to other third-party intercoms. With this new SDK, we have built the ability for third-party intercom manufacturers to integrate to Symmetry, something that would have previously required our developers to develop and pass through QA and things. So this becomes a more flexible option that lets other intercom manufacturers integrate to us. Anyone not familiar with the verbiage, an SDK stands for a software development kit. It's essentially a set of programming tools that achieve a specific for a specific platform. So in this case, it provides the APIs for intercom manufacturers to integrate to our intercom screens and build the interface within Symmetry. And it also includes a sample template project to assist in this development. Next slide. Next, taking a look at the Suprema integration enhancements. So to kind of clarify, we currently have two different ways of integrating to Suprema readers. The first more common method that we do is integrating through the BioConnect enrollment software. That's a more traditional way of interfacing to biometrics, where a cardholder gets enrolled in Symmetry and then they get pushed into the enrollment software automatically, where they can then enroll their biometric into the BioConnect software. Nothing with that has changed in 9.4.51. The enhancements that we've been made are to a direct to Suprema integration. So the way that integration works is by directly encoding the biometric template to the card. So it works only with card plus biometric. But through Symmetry, we encode the biometric to a smart card, which then your biometric is then authenticated against the card when you present the card to the reader. So in previous versions with this integration, the entire image of the fingerprint was visible in the enrollment screen. In 9.4.51, we have now built the ability to uncheck the ability to see the full image of it and instead see a biometric template. So that helps address any potential privacy concerns of seeing a visual image of a fingerprint. Now we're just seeing the points needed for the template to work with the biometric. Additionally, we have also added the ability of encoding the fingerprint template to encoded I-class cards. So you can have an I-class corporate 1000 card that you can now encode the template to it and use it on the Suprema readers. Next slide. We've also added some enhancements to our M4000 panels. So for anyone not familiar with our M4000 panels, our flagship product is the M2150. The M4000 was built to be a panel that could also be used on third parties. So it has an API so that you can connect to it, not just with Symmetry, but other platforms as well, anyone who wants to use that API. We've been with each new release, we've been adding further and further options to work with the M4000. One of the ones that we've added for this is a cardholder account synchronization feature. So what this feature does is it scans the M4000 panels and then reports on the expected card count versus the actual number of cards within the panel. So it can identify any discrepancies. So if the software and your panels get out of sync, which can happen every now and then, now we can identify it and then report upon that and then report it within the interface. Additionally, the node status screen has been updated to show the expected versus actual nodes. So you don't need to just wait for the report. You can manually check the node to see if it has the right amounts of cardholders in the system. We've also added the ability to enable and disable access to the web configuration for the M4000 from Symmetry. So We've always been traditionally been able to, within Symmetry, open up the web interface. So now we can remove that capability. We can also automatically time it out if due to inactivity. Next slide. We have also added several performance enhancements and additional bug fixes with the M4000. And finally, we have also built a M4000 node import screen. So what this is for is, as I mentioned, the panel was built to be a panel that could talk, not just Symmetry specific, but talk to other systems. And the design was modeled similarly to IP cameras, where the intelligence is on the board, not centered, not centrally configured and then pushed out, but rather the intelligence exists in the same way that the intelligence exists on an IP camera. That's how the configuration works on the M4000. Up to this point, the configuration has been you go to the M4000, configure it, and then push to Symmetry. So what we've done with this is addressed a concern with that, it being that traditionally, if I need to configure the M4000, I would need the panel there because intelligence needs to be there. We have had the ability to have scripts that can be pushed to the M4000, but in order to more customize them, we have now the ability to import scripts into Symmetry ahead of time. Now, these scripts are built by a M4000 configuration tool that is yet to be released. But essentially, once we have that tool available, you'll be able to use a tool to configure the panel just like you would configure it through Symmetry software, and then import it into Symmetry. Before you even have the actual panel, you can now configure your access rights, your readers, your schedules, all configured ahead of time before pushing it to the panel when the panel is ready to be mounted. Next slide. And finally, we have added some performance enhancements to Symmetry's XML Open API. So this is the XML Open API has been our API that talks to the core Symmetry platform we've had for years. Several of our third-party integrations work with that XML interface. So we had built in 9.4.16 some performance enhancements that were not initially rolled into 9.4.19. Those enhancements are now rolled into 9.4.51, as well as we've added support to use XML code to sign visitors in and out of Symmetry. Next slide. And one last major enhancement, and this is not something that's specific to 9.4.51, is our integration to the Real Network SAFR SCAN biometrics. So this is an integration that it's been certified on 9.3.58 as well as 9.4, so all the versions of 9.4. Essentially, the way this integration works is when you configure your cardholder in Symmetry, you're typically loading a photograph of the cardholder. That photo, as well as their card details, are automatically pushed to the SAFR server, and then that photograph is now used as the enrollment for the facial-based biometrics of the SAFR scan. So rather than having cardholders have to report to an enrollment reader, you just use the stored photo, and that becomes the mechanism for creating the biometric template. We were showing this at ISC, and it was very impressive. It performed very well. We're excited to be adding this to our product line. And it has a lot of cool feature enhancements, and I suggest you look at that as well. And with that, I will hand it back off to Kim.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for that great overview. And as a reminder, if you have any questions, to please type them in the Q&A box, and we will get to them after the webinar. So I wanted to let you guys know that AMAG, where AMAG will be exhibiting the rest of the year. In Q1, we exhibited at Intersec in Dubai and at ISC West in Las Vegas. Both of these shows were highly successful, and we were glad to see pre-pandemic attendance at both shows. This week, in fact, it started today, we are at Expo Seguridad in Mexico. Next week, we'll be attending the security event in Birmingham, UK. This is the first time that we are going to be exhibiting at that show, and we invite you to stop by our stand, 4L50. We are hosting a happy hour on Wednesday, April 26th from 3:30 to 4:30, so stop on by for a beverage. In May, you'll find us at PSA Tech in Dallas. And in September, we'll be at GSX, which is also going to be in Dallas. If you are attending any of these events, please stop by and say hi. We want to meet all of our customers and get to know those of you that we don't know. So now let's take a look and see if we have any questions. Okay. Well, it appears that we've got one question here, Greg. Oh, a couple questions. Let's see. Are there, Greg, are you there?
Yes, I
Okay.
am.
Are there any integrations with other intercom companies, not just with Zenatel?
Yeah, currently we don't have any other integrations, but that is what the API essentially opens the door for. So if there's a product that needs an integration to other intercoms, essentially you would engage that manufacturer with us ahead of time, and we have a partner program where we can certify integrations as well. But we now have the mechanism for them to build the integration as needed.
Thank you. We've got one more here. Is it possible to add a new permission to the user audits that allow to search for keywords in the user activities going back for days, weeks, months, or years?
So I'm not exactly sure what that's referring to, I guess, in terms of reporting. What can be done is we have a advanced audit feature which adds additional information into the audit database. So what that's for is our general reports are built on things like well, what is the current data, what has happened, things like that. When it comes to user audit, the advanced audit feature adds the ability to record what changes were made. So it'll say what the old data was as what they use, so as what the new data is. Now that feature uses our advanced reporting tool, which allows us to customize reports. So so essentially, for what I think is being asked here is the ability to have a report where you could type in, a set of text, and then it's going to search through the various user audits. Well, we can create that through an advanced report. And if we need to see it based on what old data was, then we may need to leverage that advanced audit component of that. So I would recommend if you have a request for that or a need for that, reach out to application engineering. So application engineering at AMAG. So application engineer at amag.com. We can help scope out what you need to do for your advanced report. We generally offer this at no cost, so we'll scope out what the requirements are and then pass it on to our dev team to develop through the advanced report tool.
Great. We've got a couple more here. It says, in this case, the Suprema integration does not allow identification mode.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that specific Suprema feature, so I can't answer that. But nothing has been changed to do that, so to either add or remove that. So I can't say if it did not support it before, then I wouldn't expect it to have changed with the new release.
Okay. Is there anything in the pipeline to make an easier method of monitoring node status rather than opening the individual node status and waiting for the version to show?
So it depends on what you're looking to monitor. So what the node status does is it pings for its current status. So it's going to reach out and have everything report as is. If we're looking to see is the node talking or not, that can be already done through reports and alarms that can get further details. But it doesn't maintain the full firmware information about M250 nodes and the node status. Now, I do believe that information is stored when it comes to the M4000. So the M4000 does push a lot of information that we store there, but I don't know of any enhancements planned to continually ping to sell like firmware and other items like that. But again, most whether it's talking or not, you can check through alarms and reports, and you can see things like the configuration through the system configuration screen.
All right. Thank you, Greg. So thank you, Greg, for presenting on today's webinar. And thank you to Jamie, who is making sure that everything is running smoothly behind the scenes. If you have any further questions about Symmetry, please reach out to your local AMAG representative and we can set up a meeting with you. As always, the full webinar and previous webinars are on our YouTube channel. As soon as we end this webinar, a short survey will pop up. Please, please, please take that survey. We're always trying to deliver the best information possible to you. And it would be great to get some feedback. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you'll join our next webinar on May 16th. Watch your inbox for details. Thanks again.